I see one of our speakers is there. Hi, Dr. Burken.
Hi, Dr. Burken. Thank you for joining.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think Dr. Burken is.
Sorry, I was muted on entry. No, thrilled. Thank you for having me. And I was going to follow along for the first part and just see if what I'm presenting can add to it and not repeat too much.
We appreciate you taking time out. I know being department chair right now is not the ideal time. This is the most challenging time.
You can say that again.
Yes. So Nirupam,
Yeah.
Whenever you tell me we can start, we'll start.
Now it's 1:32. We have 30 participants almost, so let's wait 2 more minutes and then we start.
Okay. Would you be sharing the screen or should I?
No, I think you can share the screen because you are starting.
Okay.
And then I'm making Dr. Burken also one of the hosts. So
yeah,
he can share when his turn is. Yeah, I have it on live in Facebook. Let's see.
I think we should start now. Otherwise, we may not have much time to cover everything.
Yeah, Zhongzhe, you can start.
Okay, thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule and join us for this workshop. We have a great group of speakers and panelists who are going to share their experience, give us some guidance. Hopefully, all the participants who are thinking about applying for jobs in academia will have a great benefit from this workshop. This workshop is sponsored by Student Services Committee of AEESP. And here is the list of all the officers and the members. So a big thank you to all of them who have been part of in one way or another for this workshop. A little bit about myself. My name is already is there, so you can see that I'm assistant teaching professor at Missouri University of Science and Technology. I said Missouri State because I also am associated with our cooperative engineering program at Missouri State. A great institution, both of them. I really enjoy working over there. With me, I have Nirupam, and I would let Nirupam introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Nirupam Aich. I'm an assistant professor in the University at Buffalo, which is the SUNY Buffalo, previously known as SUNY Buffalo. So I'm part of the SSC, and so I'm happy.
You're cutting off, Nirupam.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's okay. I think Lauren can introduce herself after that.
Sure, I'm Lauren Stadler. I'm an assistant professor at Rice University in Houston, Texas. I'm really happy to help with the organization of this workshop, and got a lot out of it when I was a graduate student and on the job market myself.
So here's the workshop outline. We will have overview of academic application process. Me and Dr. Ag will go over that. And then this will be followed by a seminar as chair's perspective by Dr. Burken. He is going to cover on-site and telephonic interview.
I don't think your slides are advancing. Just want to make sure. We just see the first slide.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It
Okay.
might be.
Just a minute. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay, let me share. Stop sharing. Somehow I have multiple screens, so probably because of that. Tell me if it works this time.
Yeah, it looks great. And you can go to the presentation mode probably.
That's what I did last time. Do you guys see the presentation mode this time?
Oh, it's showing the PowerPoint slide mode.
Okay. I guess I have to, I'm sorry for this technicality. Let me see what could be done here. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. And then you guys see the PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I apologize for the technical issue before. So this is, hopefully you are seeing that workshop outline right now. This workshop will cover 2 seminars and 1 panel discussion. First seminar will cover overview of application process, and the second seminar will be by Dr. Burken, who is going to talk about telephonic interview and on-site interview process, and share his perspective on that particular section of academic job application. And this will be followed by a panel question and answer. We have a great panel with us, Dr. Sharon Walker, Dr. Burken, Dr. Vela, and Dr. Liu. All of them are going to answer your questions that you already submitted. And if you have some more questions during the panel discussion, you would be able to share them in chat live. So we will continue with the first seminar, and that is going to be overview of academic application process. The first thing first is why do you want to come to this field? And everybody has different reasons for that, and they should be known to you. That's why you are planning to do a job search in academia. So I listed some of them.
Only one more thing. I think, can you take out your multiple screen, because it's still showing the 2 slides, next slide and the other slide. It's
yeah, you may want to swap the displays.
Yes, probably. That's why what is happening. I will just, you guys.
That took the other one. Yeah.
Here.
Hi, yeah, hi, yeah. Now it's great.
Oh, thank you. You should have told me that before. I didn't realize that, what was visible. Okay, so uh, the reasons, they are different for everyone. So some of the common reasons are listed here. Some people prefer the freedom to pursue research once they are tenured. Uh, and some people prefer financial security, and those I'm going to skip this because if you are interested in academia and trying to pursue this as a career, you already have your own reason to pursue. So first thing first, the purpose of this whole workshop is for you to help, uh, for you to know where you stand and how to get at your dream job within academia. So this quote from Susie, it's impossible to map out a route to your destination if you don't know where you are starting from. I had to read it, even though you all can read this thing, but I like that one, and that's why I'm including. So you have to know where you are and how to get there. Uh, uh, and only then you would be able to achieve success. Uh, the whole process starts with application process. These days, many advertisements are coming out and they list overall process in them. So the starting is going to be, and this is from university perspective. At the end of application process, they will have a pool of applicants. And from that, they do initial screening. Dr. Burken would be able to share more about that, that what criteria they go and apply that to the pool of applicants. And after initial screening, there will be a list of candidates that will be invited for virtual or telephonic interview. Uh, and after that round, another screening takes place, and some of them will be invited for on-campus interview. Uh, if you have done good and you still pass out come out successfully from another screening, you'll be offered a package, and the negotiations happen. Once negotiations are done and both parties are happy, you should be able to have your dream job. Now, most of you asked in your application when you were registering for the workshop, when to start. Most of you asked if it is final year of PhD that you need to start. Is it after postdoc experience, or is it industrial experience that you need to gain? So we'll try to cover some of those questions in this particular seminar. And then there were questions from some of the participants who were asking how to prepare your package. How to choose a job. There are different kinds of academic jobs out there: teaching oriented, research oriented, R1 versus R2, PUIs, and some of the common questions were focused on where to even look for these jobs. So I would say the starting time, there's no certain rule, and this is my perspective. Most of the students, they start looking for jobs in their final year of PhD, and that's okay. And in some areas, postdoc experience works out really great for some of the people. So it depends on the job requirements. Some universities will ask a track record of successful funding, external funding. And if you're a PhD student, you probably will not be able to show that. So you have to look at the job description and figure out if that's what you want to pursue. Then you need to check boxes. If you are going for a postdoc experience, 2 years is the best experience, but there is no rule. Even if 1 year experience, if you have 1 year experience, that is good. It depends on the quality of the experience. We wrote here 2 years is the best, but I've known people who have had 3 years of experience, and they are now really successful faculty with a bigger research group than their colleagues. So it depends. If you want to run your own research lab, then you need to bring in all the ideas together. And if you are graduating right from PhD and haven't had much exposure from different ideas other than your own research, then you probably will have one research field and that's what you want to do. But having a postdoc experience gives you opportunity to work on different topics other than your own research of your PhD research. So that will help in terms of setting your own lab with bigger research umbrella, I would say. Uh, you may want to talk to your peers, seniors, and mentors. They are the ones who would be able to tell you when to start your job hunting. Uh, Sending out CVs is first thing that you should do. You will figure out what kind of feedback you are getting. So that helps a lot in terms of getting understanding. Am I getting a good feedback or am I getting any response? Okay. Some of the websites where you will be able to find these jobs are posted. Some jobs you could refer to AEESP website under job section. They have very good listing of all the jobs in academia, specifically in environmental engineering area if you are looking for this area. And then there are common websites, higher education jobs, academic jobs online. These websites listed over here are updated regularly, and you even have options to subscribe the job posting and choose the types of jobs you want, and they will keep sending you emails. So if you didn't know where to look for jobs, these websites should be able to give you plenty of options. Another another step is getting everything you need to complete the application. And that includes preparing your CV, preparing your cover letter, research and teaching statement, and you need to make sure that you tune them to the job description base, because your research statement, your teaching philosophy, and your CV is not going to be ideally suited for all the jobs that are there. So you may have to look at the job description and fine tune towards the position you are trying to apply for. Good recommendations are really, really important. I cannot say that enough. So you need to make sure that if they are, the university is going to ask you for recommendations, you have solid recommendations already in your bag. You have talked to them, you have let your people know that you are applying for these jobs. Keep looking for any email from these universities who may ask for recommendations. So making sure that you have a good set of recommendations is going to help you a lot. Universities, sometimes they call and they want to talk to the people who are recommending you to figure out what are the reasons that they believe you would be a successful candidate. You would be a right fit to the university. So help your people know why you are a good fit. I think they know, but still, if you help them know already, that would go a long way. Take chances. This is something that I have talked to many people. Sometimes you are coming out of your PhD right away, and you will think that, okay, I do not qualify for this job. This is a great university, and I'm just coming out of PhD. I may not be the right fit. You don't know that, and let the committee do their job. They are the ones who are going to decide if you are the right fit or not. So take chances, apply at the university, regardless of what your background is. If as long as there's a good match with the job description and your background. Don't be shy about like, okay, this is the top tier university and I'm doing PhD, which may not be at the top institution. So don't think about that. Let the committee do their job. Next is study the department, study the university. You need to know as much as possible about the department activities, the research direction, their plans for the next 15 to 20 years, 10 years. University posts those things all the time. A few years ago, every university was posting Vision 2020. I'm pretty sure they have updated to Vision 2030, things like that, where they outline where they want to be. That would help you understand what is department looking for in terms of future. Negotiate. This will be covered a little bit later, but at the end, once everything is said and done, you will be asked to make a decision. This is what we are offering you, and you have to make a decision. So we'll talk about that. A little bit about CV. Nirupam, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead with it. So now we will go into the details of the different sections of the application package documents. Like mostly the most common ones are CV, research statement, teaching statement, list of referees, and a cover letter. So CV, I think CV is the most important thing because that is the summary of your accomplishments and your research that gives the information to the search committee. And most importantly, CV will be probably the first thing that the committee will look at. So it is very important to do a very good job. And I would suggest that you can start early on, like when you are a grad student in your first, second year, to start making the CV. And it takes time to perfect it. And you can put together, because many times when we try to do it at the end, right before applying for the job, then we may miss out some important information. We miss information about conference attendance or some workshop that we did for professional development. We can miss that. So I would say start early. And one thing I recently saw that I would like to point out, that put a short research summary on top, so the committee may see what you work on instead of going through your publication list. They will get an overview and make it more understandable for any non-experts in your field, at least giving a broad view of the you are applying to environmental engineering. How does it relate to water quality, either water treatment or either water quality assessment? So making that claim what your research does in short summary, and that may be that 3 sentences may become your key discussion point for any short meetings that you have with your search committee during your on-site interview. You will get 1 to 2 minutes to talk about your research to anyone. So that's a key. So I would say follow typical academic CVs, look at other faculty CVs, and there are writing centers in university who can help with CV building. So try to look at that. And one thing for sure, we in all these cases, all the documents need to be tailored to the position that you are applying to. So I would suggest have a CV in your computer which includes everything that you did. But look at your CV when you are modify your CV when you are applying for the position, and look at what they are asking for, what type of achievements they are focusing on. So if you are applying to a teaching position, maybe you bring the teaching experiences first and take the publications later. People will still look at your publications records, which is probably the most important thing during or after PhD. But depending on which position, teaching versus research, and what type of research area they are looking into, so you can tell your CV. And then focus on the strength. Your publications will be important. Awards, if you have gotten any national award or something which is an exceptional, which is only given to exceptional candidates in a certain field, highlight that. If you have written any grants, highlight that. But in many cases, students are not able to submit any grant by themselves, but you can include a short section on if you have any experience with proposal writing with your advisor, or if you have helped writing any proposal for your advisor. So it's like you have written some small sections, and you can ask your advisor, can you include that information? You are not saying that you are writing it. You can say assistance in grant writing, because in most of the research schools, grant writing is the major part of the job. So if you can show that you have some experience, that may improve your chances to get to the second stage. And be careful about claims. Like many times we are thinking, okay, I will probably have 6 more other papers in preparation or something like that. So be careful about what you have submitted and what you have achieved. Don't try to oversell because people will know. Papers in preparation are typically one thing that they are not really considered an accomplishment. They are in progress, and typically it's uncertain when the paper will be submitted. So if papers are submitted, that is a very good sign, and you can put that in. But papers in preparation, you can have that, but don't expect that to be a major game changer. Okay, so Zhongzhe, can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah, so I think cover letter is very important, and any of the documents are important, but in cover letter mostly you can focus on the position that the school is advertising, department is advertising, and say how your previous experience and future vision of your career match with the position that they have. So if it's and it can be many different reasons that you can put into in a cover letter, why you want to have the job in that certain department or certain school or even certain region, right? Say you want to move to some place specifically and you have a personal reason that is not invalid at all. So it doesn't have to be always that you have to focus on your research. Sometimes we want to know when we are in search committee why one person wants to come to Buffalo, say, which is, I am very happy there, but many people don't like the weather. So if you have any such reason, you can explicitly say, and it can come up during your interview too. Why do you want to come here? So there are many things. Some people are from try to go back to their close to their family. That is a valid reason too, but that is not the only reason. It has to be there has to be something related to the position, why you like the department, or what have you found from the information of the department that has attracted you to particularly apply for the position. So if you tailor that, then people actually, the search committee actually understands that there is a significant interest from the candidate. So that can really help. And make it readable to non-experts. It can be 1 to 1.5 page most, and you can briefly summarize your research and why you are applying for the position, and then say which research area you are going into, and try to make it a little bit different from your PhD work, and so that you are using your previous experience, but still you are moving to probably a slightly different area, and probably it's closer to the vision of the department. So try to tailor it that. But these are very small, like brief writings, and you want to also highlight your accomplishments and what makes you a perfect candidate or the best candidate for that position. So it is also important to highlight 1 or 2 key achievements. If you have a certain award, again, you have that in the CV, but the CV has probably a list of 10 awards, but one of them is probably major, and you can say that this is the recognition from the field of my research to me that I'm doing good research in the field. So if that is the case, make that. Some people have teaching assistant award, so they can put that in, that I am applying for this position, which is more towards teaching, and then you can put that in your cover letter too. So try to kind of tell the same story over and over again throughout your application packages, so it becomes convincing to the search committee. Zhongzhe, to the next one. Yeah, in research statements vary from program to program, committee to committee. Some cases I have seen people asking for 1 or 2 page research statements. Some don't have limitations, so page limitations. But overall, 1 to 2 page is 2 page to 3 page. 2 page will be 2 page to 3 page would be the major size of research statement, where you will explain first your previous experience and overall research focus. What is your field? Why is it important in general in the field of environmental engineering per se? And what have you done and are you currently doing in this field? And where do you want to go with the research? And again, we are talking about making your research plan, future research plan, slightly different, not really different, meaning you are learning during your PhD and postdoc a certain skill set or theoretical background you have, and you want to use that theoretical background or experience or research accomplishments to find a new research. The word research itself means to seek answers to different questions, right? So we are trying to do, in case of research faculty positions, we are trying to find new problems to address, find new scientific fundamental understanding to achieve. So what is your plan to achieve, and why that research is important for the field, or the how it will help you to grow into your career. So there are certain topics, so you can list your previous experience, but don't make it a long list, or don't. I have seen applications where people have only for 2 page, they describe their previous research, and only in 1 paragraph they mention what they want to do. That's not what the search committee is looking for. The search committee is looking for the opposite side. So in 1 or 2 paragraph, one paragraph will be difficult. 2 to 3 paragraph, I would say, describe what you have done, and you can refer to your CV to look for the publications in your specific research topics, and then you come up with probably 2 to 3 research ideas, or like under the umbrella of a bigger research objective or goal, overarching goal. Say for example, I did my PhD in environment, understanding how nanomaterials impact the environment, and understanding fate and transport of nanomaterials. So during my PhD, I'm learning those things, and I'm researching how nanomaterials properties will impact their fate and transport in the environment, and how they will flow and get stuck in the mud, or in the soil, or move through the water. But when I'm planning for my research statement, I am saying I will use the fundamentals of nanomaterials understood in my research, PhD research, and I will use nanomaterial properties and functionalities to advance water treatment in future. And I will give example probably 3 different topics. Okay, these are the 3 different areas, or 2 different areas I want to focus on within the water treatment domain. So that is, I'm using probably the similar principles that I learned during my PhD and did my research, but then I move away from that and propose something different. So, and one good thing is to provide some example of projects, and then build if you don't, typically we don't have data for what we are going to plan, probably give some conceptual diagrams, and you can actually use that conceptual diagrams for your presentation for on-site interview later. So that gives one thing to remember throughout the package making, that search committees will get 100 to 300 applicants per position, depending on the field. So there are a lot of applications to sort through, so they don't have enough time to look through your details. So if you can make them understandable through diagrams and other things, that is easier to catch and deliver the concept, that's more beneficial for the search committee. Okay, so then there are two other things. Who are going to fund your work? It can be state agencies, it can be foundations and federal government agencies like NSF, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, EPA, who are going to fund your specific projects. Once you give the examples, who are going to fund them, or it's not who are going to fund them, who funds this kind of work, and where you will write your grant applications to be able to get your work funded. And then who will be your collaborators? This is particularly important because once you are going to a department, the department will want you to work with your colleagues to develop new research projects and advance the research in the department to a definite area. So they are looking for colleagues who they can collaborate with. So this is particularly important, and you need to show who in the department you can work with, and if you can bring in interdisciplinary expertise, and you can go beyond department and within the university. So it is very important to study the university or department that you are going to apply to. So every research statement may become different in terms of finding those collaborators and finding the matching, or say describing the fit of your research to that particular position or department. So these are some things. So there is a question. I'll just briefly what do I mean by conceptual diagram? So it can be a flowchart or some process steps or mechanistic schematic that can show your idea in a way that it is easily visible and understandable. Okay, so the conceptual diagram may be that. Okay, let's go to the teaching statement. Yeah. So teaching statement, I think Zhongzhe, can you do this because you have more
Sure. We are a little bit behind, so I will be brief but to the point. This is a statement that you would have to be very careful, because most of the universities where you are trying to get a job, they will evaluate your research, but at the same time, students are going to evaluate your teaching performance, and that teaching performance evaluation becomes a part of your annual evaluation. So it's not like you are exceptional researchers and you can be mediocre educator in class. That's not how it's going to be most of the times. So you need to make sure that you explain your teaching philosophy in this document and let the people know what kind of teacher you are when you are in classrooms. You want to highlight your experiences. If you have teaching experiences as teaching assistant, highlight that. Let people know what classes you have taught, what was the class size. If you have teaching evaluations from those classes, please include that in your application package. That is going to highlight you for a portion of the job that you're applying, and that will convince that committee that, okay, this person has already got the hold of this particular portion of the job. So that convinces them pretty good. If you have specific plans for new courses, include that in your teaching statement. Also, I would say, if you want to bring in philosophy, why you want to be teaching it, and what inspires you to be a great teacher, that should be fine. But at the same time, you need to focus on things that are going to be important for students, how your students are going to benefit from your teaching style, what is it that you are going to focus that you realized over the period of years when you were a student that should have been in the classes but was not there. So share your ideas in this document. Differentiate between undergraduate and graduate classes, how you are going to handle graduate classes. If you have a specific plan for a graduate level class that you would like to propose or would like to teach, then you may want to go a little bit deeper into technicalities of that particular course. Uh, if you have a list of courses that you feel really confident and you know that the university is seeking candidates to teach specific courses, and you have evidence of teaching, include that, that I have already taught this class. So that is going to make your application stand out already, because university doesn't have to guess. They can see your teaching evaluation, they can see that you already have that, taught that course. So that is going to make your application a little bit better than the rest of the candidates in the pool. In the end, when you are talking about teaching statement, you are trying to convey to the community what kind of teacher you are. And one of the major mistakes students do most of the time, they will try to find a generic statement and they barely change it and they just use it. This is your chance to let the community know who you are as a teacher. Research, they can see your publications. But if you haven't had teaching experience before, this would be the document that you could use to convey how you're going to make a difference in the class. Okay, let's see what is next. References, I already discussed that previously, but make sure you have 4 to 6 good references ready with you. If an application package is asking the names, provide that. If they are saying that they will be, you can provide them later, that's perfectly all right. But make sure you let your people know which jobs you are applying and what kind of reference letter they would have to provide. Sometimes universities ask upload a letter, sometimes just say provide the name and contact information. Make sure you have updated contact information for your references. Members of PhD committee, that would be great if you are a student. They are the ones who know your work closely. They have seen your work. They are a witness to your excellence in your area, so they will be perfect. But if you have interned before or you have worked at a national laboratory and you want to use that supervisor as one of your references, that would be perfectly fine too. At the end of the day, people are the universities, the search committees, they're trying to figure you out, what kind of person you are. They want to talk to people and listen to them, and hopefully they will have good things to say about you, so that they can listen to those things, come back, look at your application and see, okay, I have personal stories that I could share, but we don't have time, so I will skip that. At the end of the day, they are not looking, university is not looking for you to hire a CV. They are not looking to hire a research statement or a teaching statement. They are looking to hire a person who is going to be part of the department, and they will be working with you. University will be investing their time, money, and resources in you, and you will be a face for the university. So you need to make sure that you come out overall as a person they may be interested in. Communication is the key. So you need to be as clear as possible in communicating your positives, your outstanding points to them, so that the committee sees everything that they are looking for. At the end of the day, I would say every time you communicate with the committee or to the chair through emails, through telephonic conversations, pay attention to being professional. Don't take it easy or too casual. I would. It never hurts. major mistakes, some of them have already been covered by Nirupam, and I test some of them. Don't make your application package too generic and use the same package everywhere for every position. That is not going to help you. If you haven't thought about your research statement in a little bit deeper, this is the time when you should start thinking about what would be your overall research, what would be your teaching philosophy. There are numerous resources for that. You can explore those for you to be able to make your own teaching statement. Try to find a new direction. If you are going to work in your own PhD area, you have a competition ahead of you. People who guided you, mentored you, they are already well-known researchers in that area. So you may have to come out of their shadow every now and then. So try to find a new direction of research. Show positive energy, show that you're excited about that job and why you are excited about that job, and make it reasonable and make it connect with your background. Not getting reviewed by others. That is, there are many people who would be able to testify for that. When you have your application package, get it reviewed by others. AEESP Student Services Committee, they do that often. They review packages, and the cycle is going on right now. So whatever feedback you can get from people who have experience in this area, and they can give you different perspective about your application, that is going to make your application a lot better. So that is one thing that, if I have to say, I'll go with that. We are out of time for our section. We stretched it a little bit too deeper. Dr. Burken, you want to take over from here, or should we continue?
I think you could go a little bit longer. I thought I was scheduled at 1:30. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. Nirupam? Hello,
Muted.
Nirupam?
Dr. Burken, you can start now, because 1:30 is your time when it ends, but you can go a little bit longer.
Oh.
Yeah, 1:30 is your time. Our time is 2:30 in East Coast.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you can start. I think you
Okay.
can go a little bit longer because we started a little bit late. So.
Wait a minute. Let me share the one that.
I got my slides. I can share my screen.
Okay.
I've updated them a little bit.
Okay, great.
That's good with you.
Yes. We took over a lot of time.
No problem. I'll gladly work through this. Do I take it through one? Yeah. Okay. So here's my presentation. I hope that's showing okay.
Yes.
Great. And I just want to give a little bit of a perspective on Chair's viewpoint on this. And also this links really well to what was already mentioned. So it talks about that. And something that was brought up, and I think is key, is to know yourself first and see your path forward. And then try to work that into the institution, department, and program where you're going to go. So those are the key things: is to know yourself, know the institution, and then know down to the department, to the program, and the individuals, and try to fit yourself in. A faculty position is a very valuable resource on a campus, and trying to find the right person who can contribute intellectually, instructionally, and culturally to a department and a program is key. And to know that, you need to understand the department program at the level of the values. What do they really value, and what do they look for, and what do they count as contributions? And then know their needs. So the needs are a little bit more specific of, are they looking for someone in air pollution, aerosol transport? Are they looking for someone in water reuse technology? Or are they looking for a generalist who may be able to contribute as the best possible person? So you can almost think about it, if you like a football analogy, is something. Are you looking to, you need a quarterback for your team, or are you looking for the best available person regardless of position? And that varies a lot depending on, again, the department and the program. So if you can understand that and fit yourself into it for them, that's the best. So if your abilities fit the needs and values, or if you can present your abilities to best fit the needs and values, that's really useful. But don't try to be something you're not. People can see that pretty clearly. And it kind of shows pretty quick if you're trying to push yourself as a square peg into a round hole. But usually you'll see that fit develop if you know yourself and your institution that you're looking at pretty well. And I just like to throw this quote out there. And the preparation is key. I think a lot of people think about the performance in an interview as the most important. And it is. You need to be prepared or perform once you're in the interview, but the preparation is really the key. Again, understanding yourself in the institution and the time put in there is going to be a lot more valuable time than the time you have on site. And you're going to have a lot more. You're going to be limited to, a few hours or half hour or so on a call and a few hours on site. So when you think about that, you're only given that 5 minutes to go forward there. Went wrong direction. And in that preparation, this has kind of been mentioned, but I really wanted to focus on that, is knowing all the individuals that are on your call and your interview is really key. Know them by their first name. If they go by a different name than what they might promote, understand that. Know how to talk to them and do so. And when you're in your call, be specific of, who's going to be on that call. Ask ahead of time. If they don't give you a roster of who's going to be on there, show them that you're a person who's going to prepare for the moment and ask who's all going to be on the call so I can be prepared. And usually that's going to be the faculty on the search committee. And that ranges usually in a department or program, but often they look for one or so out of department group or a person. And then often you'll have kind of an exit interview, even in a call with the chair for a short period. And it's very different. You're gonna present different information and be asked different questions by each. On the campus interview, you'll likely meet up to the dean level, and perhaps like an office of research, a vice chancellor for research, vice provost for research, something along those lines. And sometimes perhaps an HR person or a diversity office. It varies quite a bit, but do ask for a detailed agenda before you go and see who is going to be on that and be ready for them. And then understand what are their specialty areas, their scholarly expertise, and what do they value? Are they a person who is more on the technology development side, or somebody who's pushing the cutting edge on just the science aspect of it? And that shows what they value and what they're going to be looking for in you. And then understand what are their interests in your abilities. Are they looking for a collaborator? Are they looking for someone who's going to help create opportunities for them? And they want to help. Be specific of how they can help you and what they can offer you. And then really get down and have specific questions for each. When I've interviewed, I really like to have a specific page for each person. And I'll flip it out so they know that I have specific questions for them. I'm not just winging it, that I took the time to prepare and script out what I really wanted to know. And conversation will develop from that. Don't be a robot. But when you have specific questions for the dean related to how he or she is going to help your career, that's impressive because they want you to be successful. Everybody you're going to talk to wants you to be successful, because when you're successful, the institution is successful. And that's the key thing. That's what they're looking for, is how do they advance their unit, their department, their program, their college. And so be specific with the questions for them, but tune it to how it helps you be successful for their goals and opportunities. And then in the general preparation, do you have a concept of what you're going to be expected to do? A lot of times you may be in a specific program, but you may have an opportunity to be jointly appointed or to be in perhaps a research center in addition to an academic program. And then see who's representing those programs. And I've even gone so far as to look at who's at a university, if I've interviewed her in the past, or I look for it that people actually ask for people to be on their interview list. Hey, I saw Dr. Anderson wasn't on my list. Could she be on my interview, or could she attend a luncheon? I've really liked her work, and I think it's important that I have a chance to meet with her and talk about where we're going to go forward. Now, on a broader scale, look at a strategic plan. If the college and the department have a strategic plan, where do you fit into it? And if they don't have one published, ask if they have one. Point blank, if you have a chance ahead of time to ask the committee chair or department chair and say, I did not see a strategic plan for your department. Do you happen to have one? Or do you have a tactical plan for what you expect to do this year or next year? Strategic plans are usually looking 5 or 10 years out. And a tactical plan will be what we expect to accomplish this year. And that can give you a lot of insight of what they really value. Are they looking for new research areas to push the department into? Looking for new academic programs? Are they looking to develop more on the technological side or build partnerships with specific agencies? And then start to think a little bit more about you. What are the research or specific opportunities that are going to help you be successful? And again, everybody who you meet wants you to be successful. Are the research centers you can join? What are the opportunities that they present? Do they give free technician time, free and analytic capabilities, free access to partners? Consortia partnerships are really important. You can make really quick ties with industry that way. And what are the seeding opportunities? Do those research centers or the departments, do they have seed funding to take your very novel ideas that may not even be in a solicitation yet and let you develop some of that seed data that's really going to help you compete for the higher level research opportunities out there? And then look at teaching, mentoring, and professional support. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But look at where you can contribute, but also where your expectations are in those areas. And again, I'll mention in a minute, but I think it's very important to look at where you can contribute. And if a department has specific teaching needs that aren't filled, can you provide that? So a lot of times the research kind of drives the overall process, but fitting into that teaching mission is something you can easily prepare for and show that you're set up for success in that area. Now we'll pause for a minute and just kind of go through the typical group here. I'm not looking away. I'm looking at, I got my double screen here and resizing everybody. Does anybody have any questions of me at this point? The most important thing about an interview or any time you're investing things is that you get the information you want. So if you've got a question for me, fire away.
Anyone has any question for Dr. Burken? So one question is, how do you know what the values of the department are?
Point blank, the best way is to look for a vision or a mission statement. Where do they see themselves going? Are they developing new areas? Are they trying to enhance what they're looking at? And go back to the call also. So or a solicitation, when the advertisement says we're looking for a person in water reuse, well, you better fit that water reuse specification, or are there broader needs of the group that you can fit into as well? And you can pretty much assume that most people that have applied are going to fit the needs of the call for the most part, or at least there'll be ample people. So if you can do that as well as the next person, and you can contribute in another area that's of value and maybe wasn't listed, maybe it's in a strategic plan or in the mission or vision statement for the department or the college. If you can contribute there, you can separate yourself from a lot of the other people.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Burken. So,
and I opened up the chat. So it says, what can you explain seed funding? A lot of times research centers on the campus will have, fairly small pots of money, but it's enough to maybe get a student through the summer and some research supplies, and you can investigate something that again is novel, and you really want to get some seed data before you throw the big idea out to an NSF call or a DOE call. So if you can get a little bit of seed data and recruit a student on that funding, then you can prepare a really strong proposal and compete on a larger level. Somebody said joint appointment. Don't spread yourself too thin with the joint appointment, but if it's an opportunity, some departments, maybe you're kind of an advanced chemist and you're going to be in a civil engineering department in environmental engineering, but the work you're doing actually fits more with like a chemistry background. If you can have a joint appointment and co-advise a student in the chemistry department who may be a little bit more at the cutting edge, or they have great facilities that are only available to people in their department, that helps give you more resources to be successful. And also, I think even just asking the question shows a little bit of intellectual and academic maturity that maybe somebody else hasn't. So just that you know that that's a concept and can help, even if you're not really pursuing a joint appointment, but if you know that it's a possibility, it kind of shows you're ready for the game.
I think we can take one more question, and I will, after that we take 5-minute break before going to the panel.
Okay.
So one more question, I think it is important. Can you explain how do we know the work culture of the department? Is there any way to figure out during the interview or during the process?
I think it's important to ask. And that's kind of goes right into this one. Start asking those questions, like what is the teaching expectation? And that'll help tell you how valuable teaching is to the institution. Some people are like, we just want you to teach and be an average teacher and all your effort in research. Or other institutions be like, no, you have to be a strong teacher. We expect you to put time and effort into that and have a balanced portfolio. Is that of interest? And we're at an institution where we have a large undergraduate population, but we expect research contributions also. We're maybe a little more balanced than some institutions. And you should know that. If you look at a department and they've got, a population of 450 undergraduates and 100 graduate students, you know that that's going to be important that you're successful at that undergraduate level. And start to ask questions like this. So these are I'll flip through them really quick, and you can look at the recording of this or follow up. But these are some good questions to ask. And again, asking about resources and startup is important. One, so you know what you're going to be relatively offered. But again, it also shows a maturity that you're looking for being successful. And I'd say an important one in startup is look for having capabilities and capacity. Don't look for dollars. If someone comes in and says, well, I want a startup of $350,000 to $600,000 startup, but they don't know what they're going to spend it on, that doesn't show to me that they're prepared. If they say, I need to have GC mass spec capabilities, do you have that and will I have access? Well, then I don't need to buy one. And that shows that, again, you're looking at how to be successful, not just looking at kind of cashing in on getting there. And understanding P&T, promotion and tenure, talk to your mentors, talk to your colleagues before you go into it. You should be aware of what's expected, generally speaking. And most institutions won't have published values of expectations, but they will clearly state things like, we expect you to lead research. So you have to be a lead PI before you get to promotion and tenure. We expect you to secure funding and publish papers. Oh, and is it number of papers, or is it quality of papers, or a combination of both usually? I'm understanding that. So I want to wrap it up. I'll also throw out, you need to have those questions for the chair. And here's a few more: mentoring, support, and direct returns. So you can pull some of this down and have it. But to keep on time a little bit, expect questions and be prepared. You will be asked where to get research funding. Know programs, know where they're headed, know what their interests are, and see how you can fit into that. The simple idea of, no, I've got really good research ideas, I'll find a place for them, really doesn't cut it as a plan. And you got to kind of share your future research ideas so they understand that you're a contributor, not just kind of someone following the opportunities that are presented. You create your own opportunities. And you can see a few of these up. And one is going to be, everywhere you go and almost everybody you interview with will ask, why did you apply for this position? What excited you about it? And if when they ask that for the third time in the last 3 hours, and you lean back and you look exasperated because you're asked the same question one more time, they're going to know it and they're going to see that. This is the prime time to scoot up in your chair, get engaged, get out in front of it and say, wow, this institution is what excited me. I've applied other places, but I want to be here, and here's why. Because you guys do this and I like it. Because you want somebody to do this and I can provide that. You've got this opportunity and I can turn that opportunity into success for me and for my colleagues. That's your opportunity to say exactly why you, and again, know you and what you can do and know the institution, and that's your chance to link them. And I'll guarantee you, anywhere you go for an interview, somebody's going to ask you, why did you apply here? What excited you about here? And again, it's the 8th time you're asked that in a 2-day interview. It can be exasperating, but you've got to show that you are excited to be there, and that you're prepared to be there, that you're prepared to hit the ground your first semester there and contribute and be successful. And with that, I'll wrap her up. I think we're pretty much on time. There's a chance for questions. I'll ask them, but I'll be around later also.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Burken. Thank you very much for this information and all the tricks and tips. Yeah. So we will wrap it up for the webinars now. We will take probably a 5-minute break so that everyone can get something to drink probably. And then we will come back at 43, 45, something like that, to the panel. Okay.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Burken.
I'll be here.
Great presentation, Joel.
Well, hey, how's Dean Walker doing?
I'm doing well, old friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I was so into Dr. Burken's presentation, I didn't even realize that you have already joined us.
I snuck in a few minutes ago. I wish I had gotten to hear this kind of discussion when I was on the job market. It would have taken out all the mystery and stress. Well, it wouldn't have taken out all the mystery and stress, but it sure would have minimized it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you all organizing this.
Yeah, this is valuable. It's a good service for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and agreeing to participate. Yeah, I am just looking through the list. I think the other panelists are here too, Jeseth and Zhongzhe.
Hi.
Yeah, if you can say hi, then probably they will line up on the.
Oh yeah, there you go. Hi, Jeseth.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, and Lauren is there.
Yeah, hi, Lauren.
Hi, everyone.
Hi
Say,
there.
one of your colleagues, Pedro Alvarez, was kind of key in helping me prepare. He pulled us aside, and some of these tips and things were him to me 23 years ago.
He continues to be my mentor, so
He's a good
a
individual.
lot of great advice.
He's a great one.
Look for those mentors in your careers, everybody.
You made me laugh when you said that if somebody asks you a question, why you want to join this institute, like 3 times, 4 times. I remembered my own discussion with you when you asked me, you understand, why do you want to join this? It just made me laugh because I remember you asked that question like 2-3 times in our brief interview. So I remember that.
I will, and I'll look for consistency. And if the second time I ask, they're like, oh, well, yeah, here's why. And it's different, then it's not a lot of preparation maybe.
Or that they're not really convinced that you want that school.
Yep.
I should mention we're having a pretty significant lightning and thunderstorm outside. So if I get disconnected, I will have to rejoin,
But you have a very nice weather on your background.
Wishful thinking. Yeah, this is what actually it's a beautiful winters. Well, not winters, actually. I have different season ones I'm going through. So I guess this is my summer picture outside my office. I have to wait, there it is. Not that I've been there for 5 months. I've stayed remote the whole time.
Wow. Okay, well, I think everyone is probably here. Nobody left. So we can start the introductions and then we go ahead. So I'll share the screen or you can, everyone can just tell about themselves. So I will start with Dr. Sharon Walker, Dean of Drexel University School of Engineering. So if you can share a little bit about yourself.
Happy to. So it's a pleasure to see you all, and it's particularly fun to connect with my roots of environmental engineers because I don't get to spend enough time with you all now I'm in a more administrative role. I was in your shoes, it feels like not so long ago. I finished my PhD in 2004 and at Yale, and then went on and was a faculty member for many years, went through the ranks at UC Riverside, which is part of the University of California system, and a Hispanic serving institution. And interestingly, there I was at one of the very few departments of chemical and environmental engineering. There's only a handful of those in the nation. I personally think it's a pretty good combo. And about just 2 years ago now, I moved east, and I'm the Dean of Engineering at Drexel University. So I can share with you today perspectives from my pursuit of the job market a few years ago, although I don't think it's actually that, I think it's still relevant, my experience I had, but I've been at both public and private universities. I was interim dean at Riverside, so I can speak about leading at both a public and a private university in the recent climate, and hope that the advice I give is useful. And I will just say up front that if any of you have anything that comes up that you want to reach out to me and speak to me about afterwards, look me up, send me a note. Happy to follow up, because I'm sure we're not going to be able to cover everything today.
Thank you, Sharon. Next is Dr. Burken. You can introduce yourself a little bit, if probably someone joined later for that reason.
Yeah. I don't think I introduced myself very well. Joel Burken. I'm department chair and Curators Distinguished Professor at Missouri S&T in Rolla, Missouri. So we were University of Missouri Rolla a few years ago. I was on the renaming committee. And I got my PhD at the University of Iowa, 300 miles to the north, with Jerry Schnorr and the group there, and came directly here. So this was my first job. It is my first job. And I'm still here 23 years later, happy and being productive as I can.
Thank you. Jeseth, Dr. Jeseth Delgado Vela.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeseth Delgado Vela. I'm an assistant professor at Howard University. So I finished my PhD at the University of Michigan in 2018 and came straight here, so direct from grad school. And I've been here, I guess I'm going into my third year now.
Thank you. And our final panelist, Dr. Zhongzhe.
Hi everyone. My name is Zhongzhe Liu. I'm currently an assistant professor of engineering at California State University, Bakersfield. So I got my PhD from UC Riverside in chemical and environmental engineering. And Dr. Walker, actually, she's on my auto exam committee member. So, and nice to see you, Dr. Walker, long time no see. And after I got my PhD, I moved to Midwest. I stayed at Marquette University, a private university, for over 5 years. I was there as a postdoc and then research assistant professor. And last year I moved to California State University here. Now I'm working on some renewable energy research. And I was on our research committee last semester, so I try my best to share my experience with you guys. And again, I cannot cover everything like Dr. Walker. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to answer all of your questions. Okay.
Great. Yeah, thank you for all the panelists for coming here. And it is like, it has been a privilege to work with you and get this workshop going on. So I will, I'll also introduce our co-host for this session, Dr. Lauren Stedler. She's here, right? And so this, I will first say a little bit how this is gonna go. We have some questions that we pre-selected for individual panelists, and we will go with those questions first. And then if there are some questions that come up in between, we will try in the chat box, then we will try to add them too. And for the panelists, although many of you, all of you are assigned to specific questions, but if someone feels that, okay, they can answer or give a viewpoint to a specific question from a different viewpoint, I would say don't hesitate to add on to that. So we will start now. I'll first ask a question to Dr. Sharon Walker. And I think that is the, like, at this moment during pandemic, the most important question everyone has is how the pandemic is affecting the job market. And having a dean's perspective and how things are going in the administration, school administration, you are probably one of the best persons to address this question.
Well, thank you. So I actually come to you with, I think, good news on this front. Last week, I was on a call with all the deans, almost all the deans in the Northeast. We're part of a group that gets together monthly to chat about various issues. And during COVID, we meet regularly because we're comparing notes about how we're managing remote instruction or trying to get our labs up and running again, all those things that we all have in common in our engineering colleges. And I was the only one on the call that spoke about reduced hiring. Knowing that I was going to be seeing you all this week, I asked the question directly. How is COVID, how is the pandemic, how is this whole situation impacting your hiring plans for next year? And they all said they're still moving forward. I do want to give you a little bit of, so I think that's really great news. I want to give you a little insight about what that might look like. They all admitted that there may be delays in starting searches. And partially it's because everybody's so focused on trying to get us going for the fall in whatever way we're doing it at our institution, hybrid, in-person, fully remote, trying to keep labs open or not, right? We're all in this sort of flurry of activity that things like requesting new faculty lines to our provost, getting those approved, getting those committees together, getting everything rolling is just going to be delayed. So I think that you need to be very attentive and just know that this year, the typical calendar of when you can expect announcements out, when you can expect interviews, it's just going to be all shuffled and unexpected. And it's just going to be a little bit more on you to be paying attention to when postings go up. I think we are incredibly fortunate with AEESP because we all use this organization and the listserv to let you all know about openings. So you're very fortunate in that. I also encourage you just to keep an eye out, if you're an interdisciplinary person, to keep your eye out on other listings, you know, whether it's through AICHE or IWA or whatever organization that's right for you, to follow their postings as well, because it's just not going to be going on the same timeline as you might think. So that's good news. I will say schools like my own that are private and enrollment driven are in more of a wait and see mode on hiring. And that's just because the cost of doing business in COVID is incredible. Even when we're going to be virtually 90% remote, there's an enormous cost of sending kits out, extra TAs, all the extra supports and safety to do this new kind of multi-modality instruction is costing us a lot of money. And so universities like mine that are waiting to see how many students show up, how many students might defer, how many students are going to live in the dorms, or if we have empty dorms, then we lose a lot of auxiliary money. This is not something you normally think about, but from a business model, if we don't have our dorms full and our classrooms, be they virtual or in person, the university is impacted. So schools like mine that are much more enrollment driven and not endowment driven and not supported by the state are going to be more impacted. So you just need to be aware that schools like mine, if we hire, will be notably behind because we just have to see the impact in enrollment. And so just you have to be cognizant about that when you're doing searches and be realistic about that. I would just ask that you want to try to be strategic about this time. Things may be slower. Searches might be started and searches might be put on hold. And it's not a reflection on you, it's a reflection on the universities trying to manage a very difficult financial climate. And higher ed in general is in a moment, a sort of a watershed moment about how we move forward and how much is in brick and mortar. So you just need to be patient and realize it doesn't reflect on your talent if you're in a search that gets canceled or paused. It's just the reality of fiscal reality of the universities. So I just want to encourage you to find useful ways to spend your time during COVID. Enrich your CV, enrich your experience. So If that means you can work with your advisor, whether you're a PhD student or a postdoc, to stay a little longer, write that new paper, go visit a collaborator and learn that new technique to write that collaborative additional paper, or just to learn that extra technique, that's worthwhile too. Maybe that means taking a postdoc that you might not have expected. Maybe it's a time to apply for an NSF intern to work in industry, or a period of time at NIST, or a national lab. Those are all incredibly useful to just continue to enrich your resume, that make you even more employable than you are with your current resume. So you can look back and say that this time was continuing to build expertise. I also encourage you to think about something maybe you hadn't, perhaps a research faculty or teaching faculty appointment that's not a tenure track one. There are a number of schools that are piecing together their ability to cover in COVID times by hiring people with short-term contracts. That might be very unappealing to you, but there are a lot of us, until we get permissions to hire tenure track, that are filling the interim with these one-year contracts. There are also, you may not think of this since you're at an early stage of your career, but COVID is causing a considerable amount of retirements across the country. And so there are a number of schools that, with older faculty, that are getting a lot of retirements and again are trying to fill the spaces, and so trying to turn around and get somebody in the classroom, maybe hiring adjuncts or hiring short-term instructor contracts. I would just say don't be afraid to take those. People understand that this is not a typical job market and won't judge you poorly. In fact, if you're interested in showing that you have acumen in the classroom, being a teaching faculty member on a 1 or 2 year contract is a great use of your time. So just be versatile and make sure that you fill the time developing the tools that you think would make you a better rounded candidate. And I'm sorry I'm speaking really long, but I just have one final piece that I want to add, which is in the Zoom world. So we finished our recruiting last year because some of our searches were still ongoing in March. March 13th, Friday the 13th was my first day working remotely. Can't believe as of tomorrow, that's 5 months, kind of a crazy thought. But we conducted a lot of interviews on Zoom. When you are not able to talk to people in the hallways while you're getting a cup of coffee, over meals, as they walk you to and from your hotel, like those kind of informal engagements is how we did the more holistic judgment of each other. How we got an idea of, and that's how you also could have an opportunity to judge the ethos of a place and the kind of personalities. So it's a two-way interview. I do want to emphasize that. Since it's in Zoom, you have to be all the more strategic and thoughtful in your preparation. You have to know who you're talking to. And I'll tell you, I don't actually care if somebody knows who I am, but I care because it tells me that they did their homework. You would be amazed how many people showed up on Zoom interviews with the dean, not knowing what my area of expertise was, which I'm an environmental engineer, I'm a water person. They didn't even know that. They didn't know anything about me or my interests. They hadn't read the college strategic plan. I mean, that was just, it was made it really easy for me to rank candidates. You have to come prepared because the way we judge you is in such a more constrained way that you have to shine in those moments and do that extra homework. So I also say that the prep for interviews, especially because I think nobody will be traveling during this year, you're probably going to still have, I think you're going to have Zoom interviews this upcoming cycle. You need to prepare for it and realize that you have to practice being engaging. And I think the advice Joel gave was phenomenal. Body language matters. Even right now when I'm talking, I'm like leaning forward, even though nobody's in here. You want to make sure you prepare for this new modality of interviews. I'll be quiet. I went long, but I hope that's useful.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I would like to add a little bit of question, and then we will transition to Joel also to answer that question, and then transition from there. So when you said that in your experience, the some candidates were downgrading themselves by not knowing, and how much do deans play a role? They make the final decision, we know, right? But how much does the dean have? Or it varies between, so it's more like how is the search impacted by the dean for individual candidates compared to the overall process? That's my question.
So it depends upon the institution. I am a very hands-on dean. I meet every single candidate we're looking at for faculty. I did that at UC Riverside and I did it here. And I push back hard on my department heads and on my search committee chairs if I don't think they've put together a strong candidate pool. And I look very holistically. So I've shut down searches at my previous institution when they showed me a short list of homogeneous people. So and I'm not afraid to do that, and I've threatened to do it again, and it keeps people paying attention. So I'm a very hands-on dean. It depends upon the school. Some schools are very large, and there's an associate dean who's monitoring that. But just know the dean is paying attention. And there have been times where the department has come forward with the first candidate, and I have nixed it. And what we're doing is we're looking for a match of where, because the dean sees where the school is going, the strategy of the school and the institution. I see about what's happening in terms of research infrastructure that's, 3 to 5 years out that a search chair wouldn't know about. Maybe a department head should, but so I have a very different perspective of how that person will fit into a bigger ecosystem. And so that is always a question to ask your search chair or your department head is how engaged is the dean, and will I have a chance to meet her or him?
Thank you, Sharon. So to Joel, the same question, but in a little different thing. So first question would be, how does it work in your case? Like when you are a chair and you are in between the dean and the search committee, and how do you look at the fit of a person, candidate to the position, and how do you navigate, like how a candidate can navigate that 3 stages: search committee, then chair, and to the dean?
Make sure I'm not muted. Usually here we're looking for someone who fills a certain need. We're not a massive institution where we're just gonna jump in and hire the best available. A lot of times they have to meet certain capabilities in that. But then the fit really gets into it. How are they going to fit in the culture? How are they going to fit not just with the need that's explicit in the ad or within the department and related to teaching and research needs, but then where else can they contribute? What are the ancillary benefits that this individual brings? And again, that ranges from, they're going to be a really strong leader. They're going to be technically able to help out in chemical engineering and build ties, collaborations there. And I'll use a great example. So we don't have a big transportation group here, but we've got a systems engineering group that's got strong transportation ties. So when we looked for someone who could fit into our department, they had to fit in with another department or they weren't going to be successful. So I looked for somebody who could leverage off of that. So when you're talking about goodness of fit, it definitely relates to technical capabilities and needs, but then you have to look at everything from diversity to culture of a person to how collaborative do they seem they're going to be or easy to work with. That all plays into it, but it is tiered, and that technical ability and technical fit is first and foremost in our searches.
Great, thank you. So a little bit follow-up question: as a search committee member or the search committee chair, what about the cover letter mainly? How do you fit your cover letter? How does it fit their cover letter position? Or how do you see what do you see as a strong cover letter?
Was that to me first?
Joel, yeah.
And we really look for that as, did the person spend the time to craft a careful letter that explicitly says how you answer the needs of the call, of the solicitation of the ad, but then again, develops into, this is going to be, an investment to fill these needs. This is, a multi-million-dollar investment in an individual that we're expecting, 6 to 25 years out of. Where do they see their future going? So not just trying to answer that solicitation, but trying to paint a picture, which is hard to do in a 1.5 to 2 pages of where you see your career kind of headed. And there's going to be bumps in the road and twists and turns no matter what, but at least painting that you have a vision for how you're going to fit in that university on day 1 and on day 10 years plus 1. I really look for that in the cover letter and the statements.
Thank you, Joel. So we will go to now Jeseth for a question. What is, you are in Howard University, and that is a R2 institute compared to where you were before as a PhD student, which was an R1. So how do you see the differences in the environment, like interview process or expectations from the search committee when you were doing a search for a new candidate?
Yeah, so just so everybody's on the same page, the categorization between R1 and R2 is among one of the main ways that you're categorized as an R1 is research expenditures. And so that's goes hand in hand with the main difference, which is you're working at an R1, you're going to have more resources, you're going to have more opportunities for these seed grants that you can kind of pull off into a larger proposal. But I would say that R2 universities value research to the same degree that R1 is. That is where my focus is. So the official percentage breakdown for my time on my annual evaluation, sorry, I have to look at it, is 60% research, 15% teaching, 10% professional development, and 5% service. So that just gives you an idea of where my institution values my time, and that goes hand in hand in the interview process. So this year we had a transportation call, and it was very clear that many of the people that applied did not internalize or do enough research to realize that that's what we valued. You know, they told us they wanted to work at Howard because they wanted to teach. And so you really need to do your research into the institution and kind of understand where it wants to be. And so that kind of gives you an idea of what an R2 is like. The one thing I'll say is, you know, this is my soapbox that I want to get off the bat early on, just in case I don't get a chance, is that faculty applications are really personal. And so I would recommend, or what I did, which is what I would recommend, is to take a moment before you start applying, before any calls come out, to think about what it is you want, why it is you want to be a faculty member, and what are the constraints you're willing to give up on. Like, maybe you have geographic constraints or family constraints. Maybe this is your third round on the market and you're tired, you know? So what are you willing to give? How many rounds are you willing to go into? And I would recommend internalizing that and making sure that you know what your value is, because once you start interviewing and going to places, I feel like it's really easy to lose sight of, well, why am I doing this? Why do I even want, you know, what is the thing that's important to me about being a professor, right? And so try as hard as you can not to compare yourself to others, because they might have very different constraints than you. And so just as long as you take a personal approach to it, I think you'll be successful. And that will help you evaluate whether or not you want to apply to an R2 school or your R1 or bust, or whether or not you really want to be at a primarily undergrad institution, which I think will be coming up next. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jeseth. So it leads to thanks for segue to the primarily undergraduate institution, so which is a little bit different, and Dr. Zhongzhe Liu will explain what are the expectations and environment in a PEY versus the research institutions.
Okay, so Dr. Delgado, Vela, she just mentioned the PEY. So I think everyone knows what's the definition of PEY. So normally we call it primary undergraduate institution. And sometimes we also call it like NSF, sometimes called predominantly undergraduate institution. So PEY is teaching oriented. So it includes both 2-year community college, so teaching only for community college, and 4-year teaching oriented university like most California State University campuses. So most 4-year teaching oriented universities have certain research intensities, but definitely the intensity is much lower compared to R1 and R2. So I use California triad system, for example. So we have UC, it's R1. So we have CSU, California State University, So in California State University, we have both PUI and R2. So if my memory serves well, the only R2 university is San Diego State University. So they have PhD program, like a jointly PhD program with UC San Diego. And for the rest, campuses should be PUI. And the last category in the triad system is the community college, California Community College. So that's teaching only. So PUI is based on the undergraduate percentage and its research intensity. So you can check a website. Maybe you can get the list. Maybe the list is a long time ago, but it's a very good reference. So I copied the link in the chat window. So maybe you can check. CUI is Council on Undergraduate Research. So you can get a list on their website. So today I'm only talking about 4-year teaching-oriented PUIs, like most CSU campuses, since everyone wants to do some research, right? So first, research intensity varies a lot depending on programs at the PUI. So many PUI engineering science programs require research, or in our departmental retention, tenure, and promotion criteria document, another word is called scholarship. So you need to publish papers based on your new work at your new institution with your new students. Okay, everything new, not your past work. And some programs also list that you need to get external research funding. Like at CSUB, we have a geology department, they require this. So even external research funding is not required in some programs. As I know, most of my colleagues have external research funding when they submit the final package for tenure evaluation at the end of the 5th year. Some of them do not just have a small amount of research funding, like only 100,000. Some of them have like $500,000 to $1 million. Okay, this is for PUI sometimes. Yeah, and even I know that there's a colleague, my friend, is working in the business school at CSUB. Normally for business school, like they don't require like the research funding, but my friend, he got almost $500,000. So it totally depends on your internal driving force as a researcher at a PUI. And also, if you take exam, if you want to get 100%, right, you need to prepare for 150% or sometimes 200%. So also some departments at the PUI have master programs, like most California State University system have master programs. And at CSUB, we have almost 1,500 graduate students on campus. So research is definitely required. But again, the overall intensity is not too high. And if you talk about environment, I'm not sure what kind of environment you're talking about. If you talk about campus environment, I think almost the same. So normally, just undergraduate students work on campus. Like I've been at UC Riverside, Marquette University, CSUB. Normally, you can see undergraduate students work on campus. You can rarely see graduate students, I think, because they normally stay in the lab for the whole day, right? And for the working environment, I think normally I just stay in my office, classroom, and my lab. Okay, the same thing. And if you talk about like expectation difference, maybe you don't have too much time to develop many high quality proposals for external funding during the instruction semesters, especially for your first 2 years, because you have lots of new courses, and only sometime in summer if you do not have many new courses in the following semester. So teaching load is high, definitely. 12 teaching units per semester, so totally 24 teaching units, but it's not so terrified like you imagine. So normally in your first 2 years, you have 6 units waived in each calendar year, okay, for 2 years. And if you are well prepared for most courses, and 2 years later, you will be totally fine because you already have all the notes for most courses. And also depending on the course, with like the course setup and how many labs for your course. If like for one engineering course, you have 3 labs, you just repeat the same labs. And maybe this course can already fill you like 6 to 9 units. So actually you don't teach like 4 courses. Sometimes you only teach like 3 courses for one semester. And finally, you will get used to this tempo, I think. And another difference, I think, is some faculties may be not very active in research at a PUI. So you need to expect that. But this depends on everyone's personal choice and also internal driving force. But there are still some faculties very active in research. And I know some professors at CSU Bakersfield work super hard on research to secure over like $2 million NSF funding, even just before their retirement. So it totally depends on everyone's, personal choice. And what are the major expectations for teaching-oriented positions? I'll give you just a short answer. So as I mentioned, high teaching load, but you can buy out a lot if you have a big funding. Some of my colleagues in my department have not taught any class in the past several semesters since they have big funding from NSF or Department of Energy, and some have the funding from the Department of Education. And another difference, this is my last point. Another difference about the search process. So I think the search process is the same. So we have the screening, the first screening process. So normally we have 120 to 150 applications for one position. And finally we select around 10 candidates for phone or Skype interview. And finally we choose 3 to 4 candidates for on-site interview. I think that's all for this question. Yeah.
Thank
okay.
you. Lauren Stedler will take over from here.
Yeah, thank you, Nirupam. I'm going to do the next round of questions for our panelists, but I also just want to say everybody can also use the chat box if you want to post any additional questions, and we'll try to address these to the panelists as well. If they're not addressed in the chat box directly, we'll bring it out to everybody. Okay, so next question is for Dr. Walker. How are universities and departments changing their hiring practices to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion? And kind of as a second follow-up question to that is, a lot of institutions ask for a diversity statement now in the application package. How do you write a compelling diversity statement?
So this is increasingly important. Schools started asking for diversity statements at UC Riverside. We were requiring diversity statements 4 years ago. And I think we're only the second UC to do that. Now it's becoming much more common. Now, I have to be really frank, there are a lot of schools that don't know what to do with the diversity statement, but it's very important part of the package. And from the dean's perspective, it's critical. So a diversity statement, you have to think about your whole, I'm going to clearly start with the latter question, and I'll come back to some diversity issues. You want to think of your whole package as a holistic view of yourself. Because even if you're applying for an R1, you need a teaching statement, a research statement, and a diversity statement. And even I think at R2s and at teaching institutions, they absolutely care about all those things too. It just may be intertwined and asked for differently. What we're looking for is a track record of commitment to a broader community. Now, what's really interesting is environmental engineering lends itself to a lot of that engagement really naturally. Some of us, our engagement is because maybe we're doing field work, in Flint, and we're looking at issues of, equity and environmental justice in addition to environmental chemistry, right? Some of the work we do by virtue of how we do our work and where we're studying has that kind of engagement. Others of us might be at HSIs or MSIs. For those not familiar, that's Hispanic or minority serving institutions, or HBCUs. At such institutions, there's a real opportunity to engage students of color or first-gen students. And I encourage you to get involved, because when we read these diversity statements, we're looking for someone who's shown that you care about access. You care about the diversity of people that are not only in our classrooms and in our labs and on our faculty, but the diversity of people benefiting from our research and benefiting from the work that we do. So it's best for you to think about, in your circumstance, where have you been able to make an impact? Where have you shown leadership? Because we're not just looking for well, I've mentored 3 women over the last 6 years that were undergraduates. That's not moving that needle. That's not showing a sustained commitment to diversity and inclusion and equity. But if you've been mentoring REU students and undergraduates while working, volunteering in a school or doing field work, all of these things matter. We want to see that we're bringing in a colleague that has shown real commitment. Now, this is a balancing act, because you need to do this on top of getting a little teaching experience, on top of getting all of your lab work done and get your papers out, right? This is a tall order, I know. And so maybe what you've done hasn't been extensive, but show us that it has been authentic. We're looking for somebody who cares, that is going to come and show a commitment to creating a respectful diverse community of scholars at the university and do work that's impactful for a broader diverse community of people. So you have to decide where your strength is as a function of who you are, your interests, and the institution and the communities you're at. Now, if you don't have anything that even speaks to that, then I highly recommend you speak to your advisor, you speak to your department head, you look at your university, and you see what opportunities there are to be engaged. You know, if you're in a city like Philadelphia, there's lots of opportunities, and maybe it's not going to seem as obvious in other places in a more remote place. So it's a matter of just looking and being intentional and showing authentic, sustained commitment to issues around diversity. And it's not too late to start. Where we started to look at that with purpose a few years ago, we are looking at it all the more intentionally. So this is now getting back to the first issue, is how is this all impacting the search process? We are looking to diversify our faculty, and this isn't anything new. I mean, there's some of us who've been trying for a while. We just have a social lens on us, really acute focus on us now, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to diversify our faculty. That's going to impact all of us. It's going to impact hiring initiatives. I think that's a very good thing. What is this going to mean for your application? It's all the more. So I'm just going to, if I could just sort of speak to the elephant in the room, which is I've had a lot of people concerned, you know, like, am I an eligible candidate in this era of diversifying? I want to be very clear that diversity is a very broad statement. A healthy university is one that involves and includes and supports faculty and students of color, first generation, socioeconomically challenged students and people. We want to see breadth and internationalism, especially in this era where we see so much xenophobia from the top. You know, our universities are bastions of open-mindedness, of internationalism. We want to see LGBT+Q+ faculty. We are looking for diversity in so many different ways. And honestly, all of us offer a very important element to the diversity of an institution. So I want you to understand that all of you are important scholars and should continue to pursue your career trajectory if you would like to be an academic. But also, this is going to be a year people are going to be talking about diversity in the interview process much more openly and blatantly within like allowable legal limits. But it is going to be a part of a conversation. So if you are not comfortable with these kind of conversations, it is time to become so. If you don't know what BIPOC is, BIPOC, go look it up. If you're not staying active in the conversation about diversity in higher ed, you really need to be well versed in it, because whether you are it's just a part of now the conversation, and to be a competitive candidate, you have to be an advocate for others, and to be a good advocate and show that you could be a good advocate, you have to know the language and know that the national narrative really, really well, and not be afraid to talk about it. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. There's one follow-up question that was posted in the chat. That was, is it possible that your diversity statement could backfire? Being a person of color and a first-generation graduate student, could you come off as potentially too biased against other groups of students?
So if you write an authentic statement that speaks to your value system and about your identity, and a search committee judges you poorly on that, that's not where you want to go. You don't want to be at a place that's not going to be respectful of you and your honest characterization of self. That might make the search process a little harder, but I think I'm a big believer that you need, and this is where I usually hate saying fit, because fit has historically been a way people have been exclusionary. But where I think the word fit matters is you need to go to a place where you can be you, and they're celebrating what you bring to the table. And it's worth being on the job market a little longer till you find that institution that values you and what you bring. And you know what? There are enough schools that are going to be doing searches. that it's worth continuing to look. If you're going to be in a small-minded department where people throw out your application because you've been honest and authentic, then you do not want to be a colleague of theirs.
Thank you. All right, this next question is going to Dr. Burken. And we had a kind of related one in the chat box as well. So how important is postdoc experience for a faculty position? And is industry work experience, so not a postdoc where you're not doing direct research, does that carry value? How's it evaluated by a search committee? And another question related was, does a career break, I'm not really sure what that means, but make a negative impact on a CV?
Boy, you asked a lot of questions there, Lauren, all in one. Usually, yeah, we're looking more for postdocs. I came directly out, and I think in my search, somebody shared that, you know, about half had postdoc experience, and I did not. I came directly from the PhD bench. I think I defended my dissertation the same week I interviewed here. But we're looking for talent, and I often say there's no substitute for talent. So if someone is showing that at a PhD, we certainly have. Our last couple hires in our department have been some other experience, but often not a lot. And we have had direct hires from PhD in. So if you can recognize talent, you know, the postdoc gives you a greater opportunity to demonstrate some of that talent. But if you've shown it as a PhD student, I think there are places for that. And that varies position to position as well. I'd say our institution probably values professional experience a little bit more than many. We're known for being comprehensive, but our undergraduate programs are larger than a lot of places. And that's kind of our bread and butter. I mean, that's one of the reputation builders that we have. And in our mission, it says we expect to build street-ready engineers. Now, those engineers may be ready for the streets of developing countries or ready for smart streets of autonomous vehicles. But we do have a little bit higher, I'd say, value for someone who's got maybe a few years of practice or expertise than some other schools. Again, that's understanding the values of the institution you're at. And if you see that in a mission statement or see that in a strategic plan, that we're going to have, you know, experiential learning and people ready to hit the ground and contribute to the profession, it's really valuable. If you see a mission statement say, we're at the cutting edge of research and we value, you know, NSF contributions at the fundamental science, you know, that practical experience is going to carry a little less weight there. And again, that's looking at understanding the fit of the institution and going forward. And a career break depends what you're doing. Hey, I felt like taking off a couple of years and chasing my musical dreams. And then I came back and I published, you know, 2 papers in science and a couple in ES&T. Hey, the break shows a creative capability. And you may think as soon as I said I went to chase my musical career, it'd be a negative. You know, no, if it shows something that's contribution, if it was, you know, I tried to get in this area and I failed and I came back and I have a moderate, you know, productivity from that point, it's not going to look favorable. But again, and so to wrap it up, I think practical experience is valued almost everywhere, but highly valued some places and less so in others. Did I answer most everything?
I think you did. My triple question there. A quick follow-up from the chat is, does having a PE add value?
That one to me? I'll jump in and say, we actually put in our promotion to full that we expect everyone to have licensure. You know, PE, we've also got architectural engineering, so we got some registered architects or registered geologists or registered land surveyor, you know, whatever the area. And I think Sharon said it better earlier, we're not as concerned that they have that, but if they feel that's important and if they've pursued it, that shows that the professional aspects of our career are important, and the things like ethics that they're hard to maybe quantify, like journal articles and things like that, but it shows that you're committed to your profession, and it shows that you're willing to contribute, because a lot of those things, again, don't have a direct linkage to quote unquote traditional productivity, but they show a value system and a culture. And the mere fact that you took the time to do it, and that you're going to express that to your students, and that you uphold those standards, you know, that has a lot more value than just the quote unquote PE behind their name. And you can see that in some people. I mean, but it's easy to kind of look and see, do they have PE there or not? And that carries weight for me, certainly does.
Thank you. Okay, so this next question is for Dr. Delgado Vela. And this is one I remember getting in an interview. How do you differentiate your research plan from your graduate advisor, both in your application, but also in the interview?
Yeah, so to some extent, a lot of differentiation will be very difficult, right? You were trained in a certain area. People might know your advisor and kind of expect a general framework of what you might know. And so obviously you can't stray too far. One thing, so speaking from my personal experience, one thing that helped me is that I was co-advised with a faculty member that was outside of civil and environmental engineering. And so when I got asked this question in interviews, it was very easy for me to say, well, I'm drawing on these other ways of looking at problems and these other methods that, you know, we don't traditionally see all the time in environmental engineering. And so my primary advisor, while she was known in the field, right, my secondary advisor might not be as well known in environmental engineering. But I could talk about this interdisciplinary training that I had. And so I think you could probably do something similar. Just think through kind of a committee member, a method, something that you brought independently to your research, and emphasize that in your documents and in the way you think about it. And this is one way that a postdoc can actually really help you, right? So you can go do a postdoc somewhere else and then talk about drawing on these varied experiences. And yeah, during the interview, I guess I emphasized the same thing. So I would say just think carefully about what it is that you brought independently to your research. And different advisors have different philosophies about, you know, what they might allow their students to do. But in this, as Sharon said earlier, in this age when you might have some time to think about something new, maybe it is a good time to go look at those different methods in order to differentiate yourself. Yeah.
One follow-up question for you, Jeseth, is, and then we got this, a few of these questions when we requested questions, was how do you come up with new research questions? So in your application and when you first start, right, you're going to build on your previous research, but you have to come up with new ideas. How do you come up with new research questions?
Yeah, so I think in general, you know, you started somewhere in your research as a graduate student. Maybe something was given to you, and as you think more deeply, as you learn more, you might come up with off questions, right? I think that's generally how a lot of us do research, right? And so generally, I think I iterate between thinking and like reading the literature, right? So I think you need to look at the literature and see what's been done and where things are. But yeah, I guess I'm open to other things. I think my main issue is focusing research questions and bringing research questions together to build a research program. I think that that's actually much harder, and to communicate that this is my research program. So as someone who finds a lot of things interesting and can like delve into different areas of the literature and go on little spirals, I think that it's important to take a step back and think about, okay, what is my research program and how do I think that this piece might fit in?
Thank you. Okay, next question is for Dr. Leo. What are the challenges as an international student or an international postdoc that one can expect when applying for a job in academia?
Okay, so first I want to say, no matter you are a domestic candidate or international candidate, as long as you are fully prepared in terms of teaching experience, publications, and research plan, you just wait for being selected. So you cannot control, the search committee. So as long as you are fully prepared, I do not think there's any so-called challenge actually. So also, I do not think your international status will be a barrier or lead to any bias, especially for civil and environmental engineering field. You can see there are so many non-domestic professors hired. So if you really want me to say a challenge, maybe the only challenge could be the communication. So here the communication means when you talk with the search committee, if you can make them understand your points. So some candidates can write very good top journal papers, but they cannot tell a very good story vocally. So for example, like I was on such committee last semester, and we had an international candidate. He is a research associate, has superb academic achievement. Also, the candidate's research field can fit California very well, renewable energy. In my mind, he should be the first choice. However, during the Skype interview, he could not organize the language very well, so making us very difficult to understand. It's not the accent problem, so we do not have any bias for accent. And most search committee members have accent as well. So I guess maybe he's not very experienced in this kind of interview. But I think he needs more practice to make the preparation perfect. To some extent, communication also reflects if you can communicate with your future students well or not, especially at PUI, you have more contact time with undergraduate students. So which is very important at a PUI since we have so much contact, as you know. So, and I think the initial question also mentions the green card and versus visa. So, so during the training, as I was on a search committee, so we have training by our vice provost. So he suggests us not to ask the candidates immigration status, since it could make candidates feel uncomfortable or discrimination. And I believe each university has an office working for international faculty on working authorization documents. So you don't need to worry too much about the visa problem. And maybe now the immigration policy may be more stringent. Maybe it takes longer time to get your visa. But anyway, no worry about that.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question is for any of the panelists. So how does one negotiate startup, salary, and dual career, and spousal hires, for example? And how do you identify deal breaker situations and how to compromise? Yes, Sharon.
Can I jump in? This is a delicate balance, and this is where you have to be really attentive to conversations you have with the search chair or the department head. I've had situations where we didn't find out there was a spouse till it was honestly far too late for me to go to the provost and use this as a moment to try to negotiate some sort of partner hire. I've also had other candidates who really presumed a little too early. Like they were not yet getting an offer and they were already telling us, well, I could only move if. And it's a delicate balance. I think you need to be really clear about what help you need for a spouse. It depends upon the place. If you're at an institution, and I'll just pick on Joel for a moment, and Rolla, there's, S&T is the school and it's the employer, and if there are others there, I don't mean to misrepresent Joel, but like that, if your spouse, you have a professional spouse, needs a specialized job at a university, that's really could be a deal breaker in a place where the university is the primary employer. In my ecosystem of Philly, I feel a little less obligated to find a spousal hire because there are more schools in the area than even in Boston. Like this is like the city of eds and meds. So if you have a spouse in education, it's really, you kind of can get away with not helping them in the same way because there's plenty of options. Now that said, I still help everybody first at my own institution. If I can't find something particular institution, there's a whole network of engineering deans connect and help each other. But you just have to acknowledge that if you're in an ecosystem of a single main university being the employer, you will probably be able to leverage asks for your spouse a lot more than in a region where there would be lots of other options that your spouse should be able, or partner should be able to find something on their own. But just be careful not to ask it too early, but don't leave it till the time you finally finish the negotiation and are ready to sign the letter. If they ask you, when they start asking you for, your equipment list and they've given you back, and if you've gone through, you know, doing that dance a time or two, then it's a good time to start saying, you know, I wonder if we could talk about other opportunities. It used to be something that would often come up in conversations when you'd have lunch, right? Like, they can't ask you. You should never be asked directly anything, right? There are illegal questions. They can't ask you your age, you know, your gender. They can't ask you your marital status. They can't ask you your religion. They can't ask you anything about that, children. So if you feel very strongly that it's you know, it would break the deal if something wasn't sorted for your spouse, often somebody might volunteer that. Well, I'm looking forward to coming here, and my spouse is hoping to also land a position in X field. That could be dropped at a meal, but over Zoom, it's really hard to have those informal moments. And so, you know, you want to make sure that if you're at the point of beginning a negotiation with the department head, to share that, because they're not going to ask.
I jump in there and say the same thing of, you know, don't push it, but we appreciate having some of that information ahead of time, you know, of, you know, are we going to be looking, and we make no decision on trying to hire somebody within that, but before, you know, we get to the negotiating level, it's really helpful to know, are we looking for 2 spousal? And a lot of times it's like, hey, they've got a really talented person, and by making the offer here, it'll help pull in another talented person for our pool. So try to maybe work it in, but don't push that right away.
So maybe a follow-up, just based on kind of things you guys have mentioned for Jeseth and Zhongzhe. How do you handle illegal questions during an interview? Because I know there are certain questions you're not allowed to be asked, but in many experiences, people do happen to ask questions that are technically not allowed to be asked, like about spouses and kids. Or what's a good way of handling that as an interviewee?
I would immediately just say, I appreciate your interest in me. I'm just not comfortable sharing that at this point in our interview. And then I would send a very quick note to the department head or search chair, whoever is your point of contact, and let them know that's happening. Because, you know, a well-run search, everybody should be reminded and briefed what's allowable and not allowable. So whoever's the coordinator of the search, you should let them know immediately.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. What advice would you right now give your past self in graduate school to better prepare yourself for the position that you currently have?
Can you restate that, Lauren?
Yeah, sorry. I'll say, what advice would you give your past self to prepare for the interview process and for getting the position that you currently have right now?
So I saw, when I read this question, I interpreted it as, how would you prepare for the position you have, not for the interview? So I'll answer that since everybody's thinking. And I'm not entirely sure how I would have prepared this exactly, but I don't think I realized how much task shifting happens as a professor. You know, in grad school, I could say, Fridays are my lab day, and I'm gonna get these things done, and it'll be uninterrupted, or I have an experiment happening this week, so I can cancel my meeting with my advisor and, you know, get it done. But now it's more like, okay, I have a proposal to write, and I have 1 to 2 p.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday to write. And that's not just writing, that's submitting all the supplementary documentation to the university and maybe getting interrupted by a student. And so I think being cognizant of that would have helped me, if nothing else, just to not be so hard on myself when I started, because I didn't realize how much that impacts my productivity. And maybe it would have tempered my expectations a little bit for what the transition would be. And then the other thing I have is, I wish I would have developed more skills in developing friends outside of my grad program. I had a very easy friend group that just inherited. And I didn't ever have to reach out to different social groups to try and make friends. And the job can feel really isolating at first. So I wish I had developed better skills and just, yeah, making friends outside of my job.
If time allows, I want to add some points on behalf of PUI. Yeah, and I think for PUI it's a little bit special. So I want to say something. So first, if an academic job is still a choice, especially you consider PUI, so you need to get some teaching experience. I think we have some questions in the chat window. So I know it could be hard to be an adjunct professor to teach a course for the whole semester, but you can talk to your current supervisor or other faculty about teaching 1 or 2 lectures as a guest lecturer for different courses. Then you can have a very decent part of teaching experience on your resume. For PUI, personally speaking, when we review resumes, if the quality of most papers is okay between different candidates, there's no big difference between like 10 papers and 7 papers, I think. But if you are lack of teaching experience, normally you will not be selected for even for an phone interview, I think. And the second, I want to say, try to write some proposals as a co-PI or even PI if your supervisor allows you to do that. Okay, that will add you more credentials. And also for PUI, I think do not neglect general engineering programs. So some universities do not have a specific civil and environmental engineering program. So instead, just like a comprehensive engineering program, but the program needs faculties with civil and environmental engineering education background and other backgrounds, sometimes like materials or chemical engineering. Like at CSUB, our engineering program has different emphasis. And one of my friends last year was just hired by Wake Forest University, and they have a new engineering program, and they hired her just because of the need environmental engineering background. So there are many hidden positions at PUI. So please check the job description of each engineering position the best as you can. So you cannot miss any other, you cannot miss any hidden positions. So even your background, the third point I want to make is, the fourth point I want to make is even your background is environmental engineering or science, you also have a chance to get a tenure track position in science programs like chemistry. Like one of my colleagues, his background is totally environmental engineering, but he's a tenure track assistant professor in the chemistry department. So he's focused on the environmental chemistry part. And also I have one friend, he just hired at another CSU campus. So his department is geology. So he's working on the geo environment. And I think most of you have like a biological process background. So you can also try maybe biology department. So, and some professors working on the contaminants in the ecosystem. So I believe many of you have strong, but the trade-off is the starting salary may be a little bit lower for science faculty. Okay, so to think about it. And the last point I want to make is if you still want to stay in the academic field, but you cannot find a tenure track position or a postdoc position, so you can also consider a full-time lecturer position, especially in the California State University system. We have lots of lecture positions. So for lecturer, you have a potential huge benefit I will mention later. So as a lecturer, you do not have, the downside is you do not have too much time on research since you need to prepare a lot on teaching. You need to teach 15 units per semester. However, do not stop publishing papers if you still have some data or your research is just simulation or analysis. You don't need to do so many experiments. So even for a lecturer, I do know other campuses, my institution still provides space or some funding to lecturers if they want to do some research. So why still build up your academic achievements? First, you can still apply for tenure track positions at a PUI level. And at that point, you already have strong teaching background, I think. And the second, another huge benefit is sometimes it always happens if you, based on my observation here, and also you can check some tenure track faculties resumes, especially in the California State University system, is you will most likely be selected as a tenure track faculty if a new tenure track line is created by the department or by the school. So it's not a promotion. You are still in the active candidate pool for competition, but you will be preferred since you already know how to teach in the department. So this is a huge benefit. I think these are all the 4-5 points I want to make. Yeah, if you still consider PUI.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
That was a great summary for PUIs. I appreciated that a lot. I'm making mental note for advising other people in the future. I've come back into touch with my grad student self. It took me a moment to think about that question, even though I read it earlier. So I do have something that I think will be useful, two pieces. The first is understand that your research statement is not a contract. Your research statement is a statement that allows the institution to judge your thoughtfulness, your creativity, and your direction. It is not a contract that you have to stay that way. And in fact, my research statement, I think I did all of like a quarter of it. Because when I got to UC Riverside, I discovered that there were people there doing elements that it would be redundant to do that piece. So I just collaborated with them. I found a different suite of collaborators there than I anticipated. And so my research took a direction by virtue of those people that I found in that environment. Why do I tell you this? Because I find that often people get so emotionally attached to that research statement. It is not forever. And what we are looking for is almost like a PhD proposal. We're looking for thoughtful work. We're looking for objectives that move the needle in the field. We're looking for somebody who has an understanding of time scale more than just their own PhD. You know, if you can talk about, this is a project, but I understand where I will be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in moving the needle in this discipline. It also is an opportunity for you to show that you know the funding landscape, you know the collaborative landscape, not only of that institution, but of maybe the region, of which foundations or federal agencies or national labs would be collaborative opportunities or funding opportunities. You need to show you've done your homework on that. Once you, and now people will be excited by that, in many ways judge you because they think, oh, I want to, you know, collaborate with her, or I would like to collaborate with him. But once you get there, really, you can look at that. You can use that as a starting blueprint, but understand that it is not a contract that you have to stay the course. They're not hiring you to fulfill that plan. They're hiring you because of the way they judge your thinking and your innovation from the plan. That's particularly important when you go to the interview, because I've been in some chalk talks, which is basically, in addition to your research talk, you'll often be asked to talk in a much more informal way, maybe with a few key slides, but otherwise informally, about your research direction. People are going to ask questions. It's going to be a lot like your PhD proposal defense. I feel like I should warn you about that, because they want to see how deeply you've thought about your ideas. And when you have a room full of people that are experts, you need to be prepared. And so how you prepare your oral presentation of your research statement or your teaching statement must be a function of who you think will be in the room based upon that university. You're not going to use the same presentation at every school you go to. You're going to have to tailor it to those people who will be in the room. You can see the difference. So you don't want to present something. I had a colleague at my previous department who literally had written the book on biosensors in 1999. He had literally written the book. And then we had a faculty candidate come in and say he wanted to invent this, you know, this class of biosensors, and he acted like none of us knew what it was. And that was a huge mistake. So when you present your research, you need to know who will be in the room. So that's the first piece. The other piece is, as much as it feels competitive, right? We've got, what, 100 and some people on this call. You're all eager to get faculty jobs. Will there be 140 faculty jobs available next year? I don't know. But I want you to think about this in a very collaborative way. Although you are all at the stage of looking for jobs, you all will land in the field. Whether you're at an R1, an R2, a PUI, a community college, if you end up in industry, if you end up in a national lab, you are all each other's collective community, and you will be engaging with each other in so many ways. And so don't be afraid to, I suggest, like little pods, little groups of you that are in this process together, go through it together, read each other's drafts, give feedback, practice your talks. Get a group of people who are, because it's also not just a lot of work, it's an emotionally weighty process. So create a support group. Even if you may be applying for the same jobs, understand that it's a collective collaborative effort, and you will all be each other's colleagues for many years to come. And that's really what's most important, is that community. And also, don't worry, you're talented. You're going to land on your feet. You're going to have a job. You're going to have a paycheck. Someday you're going to have a mortgage. In some ways, you don't want to rush it.
Thank you, Sharon. I think we are about time. we probably can take 1 or 2 questions. We have one question regarding networking. So we have talked about individual research statement and everything, but in preparation over, say, during graduate time, how do you, or like preparation for interviews, how do you do networking? Through networks, can you do like conferences or other things? Like how do you build a network of people who can help you get to a job, academic job, or like similar jobs in other places? Any one of the panelists can answer. Whoever.
I'll throw out there. I've benefited from knowing people and myself. I've presented at a couple of conferences at places, and interviews have popped up kind of from that. I think they've seen that and were impressed and kind of wanted to pull it in. But once it's in the search committee, and once you're in a search, don't try to force networking. You can ask for information, but don't write the search committee chair or the chairman of the department and say, hey, how you doing? I'm going to be there, I hope, for an interview. Do you want to be friends on Facebook? Yeah, that's not appropriate. But to ask for, I'm applying for this position and I'd really like some information like your strategic plan or your academic productivity report from last year, or anything that can help me prepare my application better to meet your needs. That's a fair question, and also kind of builds that networking. And again, if you're looking to put in the effort to find more information, it shows your preparation level and your maturity.
Great, thanks, Joel. Lauren, you had some other questions?
Yeah, I had one more that I think I saw in the chat a little while back, and it's how do you know, or how do you get a sense of the culture of the department during the interview, and especially in this age of Zoom interviews? So we know Dr. Walker talked about how we used to be able to do that by the meals and the walking from place to place, but now when it's all over Zoom, what are some ways that you can get a sense of the culture of a department?
I would use AESP as your way to get the real inside scoop. Because if you're active in the organization, now we aren't going to be able to go to conferences, but you use your broader network, you use your advisors network, you use your friends networks. You can ask people, what do you think? Don't be afraid to ask that from a group of trusted mentors. They'll give you that candid feedback.
Great. Should we continue with some more questions? Should we wrap it up, Nirupam?
I think we can wrap it up. I think we have, and if anyone has any question, they can send to us. We can send it to the panel, and then we can take to reach out. And I think most of the panelists already told them to reach out to them, and they can also reach out to us, at least to me and Lauren, Zhongzhe. Like, we are all happy to help, and then we will continue to help, and probably in future years we will continue this tradition of making this for the community-wide initiative totally. So thanks to our panelists, Dr. Burken, Dr. Walker, Dr. Delgado, Vela, and Dr. Liu. Thank you very much for helping us out, supporting our candidates and applicants, and it's really a good note. We are finishing that COVID isn't gonna impact that much in terms of at least the job openings. So we are getting more hopeful. Yeah, thank you very much for giving us the hope and giving all the great insights about the application procedure and interviews and all the tips and tricks. Thank you. And for the attendees, thank you for all sending out the questions. It really helped us a lot in sorting the questions out and giving you the information as much as we can. Not probably the whole, there are many other things that happen during application process and interviews, but we will probably have other opportunities later. And in the meantime, we will post this recording. We will figure out where to post it, but we will have it have the recordings, and we will post somewhere or probably send the PowerPoints of the seminars to at least who registered. Okay, so that's about it. Thank you again to the panelists. It has been a wonderful conversation, and it's been great. Thank you. We will end there, and thanks Lauren and Zhongzhe for helping out in organizing this. It has been great.
Thank you, Nirupam.
Thank you, Nirupam.
Yeah.
Thank you,
It's
Nirupam.
wonderful.
Thank you, Lauren and panelists. Really appreciate you taking time out. And I know that there are so many things happening because of pandemic. So your words were valuable to our participants, and that's all I could say. And they don't realize how now, but when they are going through the application process, they will thank you, each one of you, for the kind words that you shared with them.
Thank you.
Awesome work. Thanks for leading us,
My
guys.
pleasure. This was great fun. See you all on social media.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye.